Hello, my name is Samantha Ratnaika and I'm a chartered marine engineer and I now work in project management. I worked in companies in the UK, Holland, Australia, Norway on projects for clients such as BP and Shell. You may be wondering what marine engineers do. We design, build and install structures in the sea. I've put some pictures up to show you some of the projects I've been involved with. The top two are of fixed platforms and the bottom ones of vessels and a bridge. This presentation is going to be in two parts. The first is about my career, why I followed this career and the path I took, what my day-to-day work involves, challenges and opportunities, and things I've been able to do. The second part of this presentation is going to be about a career in engineering in more general terms. And I'm going to talk about the engineering cycle, types of engineering and opportunities, zero carbon emission and phasing out fossil fuels, opportunities in renewables, some advice if you're thinking of following a career in engineering, and some tips for starting your career journey. Why this career? It starts with childhood dreams. I still remember as a young child at Christmas, my brother getting the Lego as a present and me playing with it the next morning. I like to build from a young age. My parents encouraged me to study hard at school and also I was stronger in sciences and maths. I loved maths and I found the more I did, the better I got. The path I took, I did my GCSEs and A-levels in physics, chemistry and maths. You may think it was plain sailing, but it wasn't. The school I was at didn't want me to do my GCSEs, so my parents moved me to another school where I did do my GCSEs and then went on to A-levels. I then went to university to do a BE in aeronautical engineering because I loved planes. However, in the middle of the degree, I thought, a lot of applied maths, not sure this is for me. So after that degree, I went on to do an MSc in offshore engineering. And after that, I started my career in marine engineering. And after working as an engineer for 10 years, I then went on to do an MBA and moved into project management. A typical day for me could be in the design office, the fabrication yard or on site. In the design office, we design the structures that we build in the fabrication yard and we install on site. The great thing about engineering is you can decide where you want to spend most of your time by the jobs you take. If I were in the design office, I'd be spending a lot of time on the computer doing calculations, analysis, technical drawing. As I moved into project management, I spent a lot of my time in team meetings, progressing the design, meeting with clients and vendors. For both engineering and project management, communication is important. When I started my career, I was quite shy. As the years have gone by, my communication and confidence has really improved. I worked on a project where I had to go to the fabrication yard frequently in Aberdeen to check on the progress and quality of the pipes and structural steel being fabricated, and also to ensure that health and safety was adhered to. Health and safety in my industry is extremely important. Site visits, my favourite. When I started my career in the early 90s, I really wanted to go offshore, but it was unheard of for women to be on the platform. 25 years later, I realised my dream when I worked on a project based in the Tunisian waters, and I led a site survey offshore. You can see me standing by the helicopter, and also there's a picture of me on the platform. The third photo is of me at the BP Salamo terminal where I led a number of site visits. I've again highlighted health and safety because it's very important in my industry and also in engineering. The next slide will show you how we left the platform. When I look back on my career, I find the most challenging times have been progressing my career in project management. For example, team members reluctant to follow my instruction. I persevered and eventually they followed. Another example was when I was representing an oil company as a package engineer for a package being built out in South Korea. When I went for the first progress meeting, I took my engineer and quality assurance manager with me. And during the meeting, the project manager from South Korean company was constantly addressing the engineer. At break time, my quality assurance manager took the project manager from the South Korean company aside and said, "You do realise that Samantha's the boss, don't you?" Well, following that, the project manager from the South Korean company actually addressed his comments to me and listened to what I had to say. Opportunities now. I'm a marine engineer and I really like my work. But you could also be interested in mechanical, electrical, engineering, to name a few. As I work in project management, I deal with all the disciplines, and later on in the presentation, I will discuss a little bit more about the main types of engineering disciplines. When I started as an engineer in the early 90s, I was the only female engineer at the company I worked for in Holland. As the years have gone by, more and more women have entered the profession, which is fantastic. More companies are global, so diverse teams are good, especially for international projects. You could be dealing with a package in South Korea, a client in Tunisia, or a design team in India. I've had a fairly good career in engineering, and it's also given me a good life. I've put some photos up of some of my hobbies to show you what I've been able to do. I started playing hockey at university. I still play. I belong to a club. I learned how to ski when I was working in Norway, and I still love to ski, and I try to go twice a year. And I love hiking. I've hiked Kilimanjaro, and there's a picture of me whilst I was trekking Base Camp Everest. I'd like to give you an idea of the engineering cycle at a high level. It's normally made up of design, build, install, and test. Where these things happen depend on the product and industry. For example, if we were building a chemical plant or an oil refinery, we would design in the design office, build in the fabrication yard, install on site, and we would test here. And if the equipment passed the test, the plant would be ready for operation. If we were building a car, we would design the prototype in the design office, build the car in the manufacturing plant, and testing would probably happen here. And if the car passed the test, it would be ready for sale. Regardless of the industry and product, there are many different types of engineering disciplines are required, which leads me on to types of engineering. There are four main engineering types: civil, chemical, electrical, and mechanical, which I'm going to discuss later. There are also many specialist engineering, which I've listed here, and I've also highlighted aerospace and marine because that's what I did. Chemical engineers are involved in the design and development to convert raw materials into useful products. Products such as the food we eat, the energy we use, beauty products. They're needed in many engineering fields. I've listed a few: manufacturing, design and construction. As a chemical engineer, you could work in a lab, you could decide to work in the renewable energy industry, chemical plant, pharmaceutical factory. Civil engineers oversee the design and construction of major public works such as roads, buildings, our transport network, rail. A lot of work there. As a civil engineer, you could work for a government organisation or in private industry. Some private companies win government contracts that you could work on also. Electrical engineers design, develop and test new electrical systems and equipment. They're used in nearly every aspect of our lives. If you think about the cars we drive, the hairdryers, computers, mobile phones we use, an electrical engineer would have had some input. Some of the industries they work in: telecommunications, design and construction, aerospace, marine. Electrical engineering is one of the most difficult degrees to do. However, it's also one of the most rewarding, and there is a lot of work out there for electrical engineers. Mechanical engineers are involved in the manufacturing, design and maintenance of mechanical systems. When you think of a mechanical engineer, you may think cars. However, mechanical engineering is a broad area that can lead to a range of specialisms. I've listed some of the industries that mechanical engineers work in: pharmaceuticals, design and construction, utilities. I did aeronautical engineering as a degree, and 3/4 of that was mechanical engineering. And it was probably why it was easy for me to do marine engineering afterwards. When I started my career in the early 90s, it was oil and gas. I put this picture up to show you what we use oil and gas for: heating our homes, beauty products, the cars we drive. It's a lot of things. And this is why the oil and gas industry became one of our major energy providers. However, oil and gas is a fossil fuel, so when we burn it, we release carbon dioxide and poisonous compounds into our atmosphere, which is heating up the Earth. And this is called global warming. You may have noticed some of the extreme weather conditions that we've had. This is due to global warming, and it's not good for our planet. Now that the world has acknowledged that global warming is happening, many countries, including the UK, are aiming for zero carbon emission, which is fantastic. This means phasing out fossil fuels. So moving from non-renewable energy such as oil and gas and coal, and moving to renewable energy such as hydropower, solar, wind energy, gradually phasing out fossil fuels. Nuclear energy isn't a fossil fuel, but there are concerns such as safety and waste disposal. The government has identified nuclear energy as a clean energy to help us achieve zero carbon emission along with renewable energy. Hopefully, in the future, there'll be a time when renewable energy will meet all our energy needs. Opportunities for engineers in renewables. Renewable energy comes from the natural resources on our planet, and there are 3 sources of renewable energy. The first is direct solar energy, and an example is solar power. You may have noticed solar panels mounted on the roofs of some houses. These capture the sunlight directly, which is solar energy, and converts it into heat and electricity for household use. Solar energy can be converted into useful energy indirectly also. For example, plants need the sun to grow. This is called photosynthesis, and you may have done this in science. Some countries harvest crops such as wood and straw for heating. Some harvest oilseeds that can be converted into biofuels. The sun causes the water from the ocean to evaporate into the atmosphere. This moisture in the atmosphere then condensates into moving rivers and streams that can feed dams and turbines, which then convert this moving water into useful energy, hydropower. The sun causes different temperatures in the atmosphere, which results in massive heat flows towards the poles, which gives rise to wind. Some countries have already harnessed this wind energy, and they have onshore wind farms. Some have offshore wind farms. The UK have both, and the energy they produce provides some of our energy today. The wind blows across the ocean, creating waves. Devices are being developed to capture this wave energy. The third is non-solar energy, and an example is geothermal energy, which is from heat deep within the Earth. On some locations on the Earth, closer to the surface, there are hot rocks. Think volcanoes and springs. The heat from these can be converted into hot water for heating. The steam can be converted into electricity. Tidal energy is the rise and falls of ocean tides and currents, and this renewable energy is still in its infancy. So for all these different renewable energies, we need different types of engineers for research, to design, build and maintain the equipment and infrastructure that converts the energy and transports it to the customer, us. So for us to achieve zero carbon emission, we need to grow this renewable energy industry. And for this, we need engineers such as chemical, civil, electrical, mechanical, and also specialist engineers such as marine engineers. Some advice if you're thinking of following a career in engineering. Qualifications. I did GCSEs and A-levels in physics, chemistry and maths because I wanted to keep my options open on which engineering degree I did. If you're thinking of engineering as a career, I suggest you work hard in maths and sciences. Decide on which route. Different universities have different requirements and some offer foundation courses if you don't have the right A-levels or grades. If university doesn't appeal, there are some good engineering apprenticeships out there. You could also consider BTEC diplomas, vocational courses. If you're not sure which engineering to do as a degree, I suggest doing one of the main engineering disciplines. You can always specialise later. It's worth putting in the hard work at school. I worked very hard at school and also on my jobs, and it's paid off. Believe in yourself and stay focused on what you want. We are going through some of the most challenging times I've known. When I was doing my A-levels, my teacher striked, and I still remember going into my maths A-level exam and getting to a section where we hadn't covered any of the topics. I looked up and my classmates looking at each other. I got my head down and I tried the best I could. That year, all the grades dropped, including mine. However, I still managed to get to university and I've had a good career in engineering. When I look back on my career and that episode, I see it as just a minor blip that I got through. Sometimes things get difficult, but don't give up. And if you have a passion for your work, it's much easier. Some tips for starting your career journey. You may have to do some jobs that are not ideal, but they could be stepping stones to the jobs that you want. I've taken some jobs that I haven't been entirely enthusiastic about, but I've worked hard and stayed focused, and they've led me to better things. Be prepared for the unexpected. Situations change. When I graduated, it was a recession. So I decided to go to Holland and I ended up working there for 4 years as a marine engineer before returning to the UK. Take constructive criticism and advice and don't let it knock your confidence. This is the beginning of your career journey and it never ends. You'll always be developing new skills. I've just learned how to do these presentations with me in them. Finally, we may not be the perfect package at the beginning of our career, and we may not be the perfect package at the end, but it is the journey that counts. I hope this presentation has been useful and good luck.